Hello, Story Seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and you're listening to The Tiny Bookcase.
Our guest for this showcase episode hails from Yorkshire and is a best-selling author of urban fantasy, historical fiction, and science fiction.
Though he has published books in several series, his hefty Harlequin Chronicles universe is by far the largest, currently comprising an astounding 20 books. Book 7 of the Harlequin series, called Scorched Shadows, was shortlisted for a Gemmell Award, a massive honour.
We would like to welcome Steve McHugh.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, how is everybody?
Yeah, January's settling in. I'll tell you that. It's sitting on my chest like a sleep demon, I think.
It's coming spicy.
Yeah, I left the house this morning. It was a terrible mistake.
It's just dark all the time still, isn't it, as well? Which isn't
dark
great.
all the time, and the entire country is a slip hazard. It's
Yes.
It's fascinating.
Yes. It's that period of time where Christmas is gone, so all the joy is sort of left with it, and now what you're left with is ice, snow, and misery. And and everyone's broke as well, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, ridiculous. Are you sort of a fan of people like leaving their Christmas lights up through until February, just to sort of try and keep the gloom away?
It doesn't bother me in the slightest. If that helps get you through January, which I think is the longest month on ever, every year it just seems to last and go and go and go. Then you do that. You be you, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah. I feel very similarly, but I also know people that are like really strict about when they go up and when they come down, and judge people accordingly. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I know people who are like 1st of January, they are down. Like, it's raining outside. I'm not. But why? Just leave them another day. It's all right.
Hungover from New Year's Eve as well.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So have we got that right, that there are 20 books in the Harlequin Chronicles, or are there more than that now?
I actually had to count that in my head, but that sounds about right. There's 13 main books and 6 novellas and 1 collection. So yeah, there must be. They're 30. So 20 even, not 30. Blooming heck.
That's really cool to have done a whole series, but also using short fiction and novellas and novels.
Yeah, really it's fun. The main series finished 2020.
Yeah.
The last book came out, I think, 2020, 2021, something like that. But I really like writing novellas in that world. I just get to kind of play about with it because it's my world and I wrote it. So, and if people keep reading them, then I'll keep writing them. So yeah, there's I plan to do more. But yeah, there's quite a lot. When people say it, like there's 20 books in this series, that sounds a lot.
A lot of people that it is a lot. Like a lot of the people that we talk to on this podcast haven't published 20 books, and this is one of your series, which is
massive.
What sort of like methods and madness does it take to spin that 20, a series to a 20 book length?
Oh, blimey. That's just how my brain worked. I started writing Crimes Against Magic, and then and the whole plan was that it was going to be a 15-book series or whatever it was, and it turned it into 3 slightly shorter series that made up 13 books. And then I just thought, you know what, I couldn't tell that story in the main books, but it's a really cool story and I really like it, so I'm going to write a novella about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote Undying and The King of Avalon, which are sort of epilogue stories to the whole series. That was just because I had fun. Like in the books, massive spoilers, I guess. But Mordred in Crimes Against Magic is a villain. He's evil and he is dealt with, and then but that's not the end of the character. And people have over the years messaged me like, was that always the plan? And yes, it was always a plan. And he's such a fun character to write that I get to go back and just put more stuff to the kind of like mythology of the world that I've created. Well, or it's this world, the world that I've superimposed over this world.
Do
And
you
occasionally, sorry,
no, please continue.
no, whatever you were going to say is fine. Go on.
I was just going to ask if you have any kind of process for remembering all of it. Like, do you keep a great big ledger, or is it just all in the noggin?
I have an Excel spreadsheet. Now, when I say this to other authors, they look at me funny, as if I've gone mad. But I have an Excel spreadsheet for every series I've ever written. And it's basically my Bible for that series. So it's got all the world building, all the characters. Every character is broken down into age, description, where they were born, relevant details, when they die. If they die, there's a tab that I can click and I write dead, and then it changes it to red. So I know who's dead and who's not. And I do it for every series so I can keep track of who does what and where. Because I didn't at the beginning and then I forgot things. And that's really bad, having to go back to previous books and be like, did I write that? So yeah, I keep spreadsheets.
That's a very sensible way of doing it, isn't it?
It's
I like it.
extremely sensible. Yeah, I know Robin Hobb does something similar, or did do something similar for her series.
If it's good enough for Robin Hobb, then it's good enough for anybody.
I think so.
Right.
I wonder how many words you've put into the spreadsheets.
Oh, blimey. I mean, right now on my desktop in front of me, there's the spreadsheet that is open for the Vampire trilogy. So far trilogy. There's going to be more books called The Assembly, and that is, I mean, that's a lot. There's 4 books so far because I'm writing the 4th one, and this is considerably less books than the Harlequin stuff. So there's thousands of words in this spreadsheet. Just this one.
We don't have to do it on mic. It might just be the IT man in me. I'd love to know the file size on the Harlequin Excel sheet.
The file size on the Harlequin Excel sheet is. Oh, okay, that's not so big. Oh, it's 85 kilobytes.
Yeah, I mean, Excels are really small, aren't they? Because they're just
in Excel terms, that's massive.
Yeah, it's big for an Excel.
And then I've got a second one which is 17, and I think I've got a third one which I've got a third one which is 40, and a fourth one which is 37, and they all have different bits in.
Amazing.
So, I found another one. So yeah, I have like 5 different spreadsheets spread out across the 3 Harlequin series plus the novellas, and they all have different bits in, and yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, for the sake of your RAM, don't open them all at once.
No, it would be terrible. It would be a complete disaster. Just opening the Harlequin one by itself, because I think it's linked to other spreadsheets, takes an age to open. So yeah, basically this is because I used to have a job, and part of it was doing Excel spreadsheets. And when I left to write full time, I was like, I'm not stopping Excel spreadsheets. I learned all that information. It's not going to go to waste.
Love it. Yeah. The sort of old man in me that's sort of growing with every day very nearly said, I hope they're backed up.
Yes, in about 3 different places.
I hope so. Yeah, I no doubt that they would have been. It's just, as I said, that old man's catching me up.
There's a plethora of old USB sticks and drives in one of my drawers in my office, which is just every year I just buy a new little drive and I back up everything onto it and put it in the drawer. And then I've got Cloud Drive and there's so much. It's
and of course a hard printed copy of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, and hard printed copies of all of it. In my shelving unit in the front room, I have all 31 books. 31. Yeah, 31.
Crikey.
That's a really impressive body of work.
Yeah, in 31 books published since 2012. So
and since 2012 as well. Fuck.
Since 2012. 2012 was my first book, Crimes Against Magic, and then so I've averaged about about nearly 3 a year for
that's
however many years it's been. So yeah, 13 years. So yeah, So, and I've just signed 2 new 3-book deals, so that's another 6.
Fuck yeah, man! Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So yeah, three more vampire books, which is why I'm writing the 4th one right now, and 3 epic fantasy, which is my first ever epic fantasy series called The Empire of Phantoms.
Hell yeah!
That's a good title.
Yeah, I kept that one for a while, and then when my publisher said, "What's the name of the title?" and I sent it to them, they were like, "That's really cool." So I was like, "Yeah, it is."
Oh, fantastic.
Speaking of those 37 books, some of which as yet unborn, that is why we're here today, to showcase the work of our lovely guest, Steve McHugh. So, Steve, would you like to tell us a bit about the story you're going to read us? Or do you just want to move right in?
No, I'm going to read from the second assembly book, which is called A Deliberate Act of Violence, which came out last year. It's the sequel to the first assembly book, which is Those Who Dwell in Darkness. And this is chapter 2, because chapter 1, I didn't want to spoil anything you hadn't read the first book. So this is chapter 2. It's about a vampire by the name of Miles Watson, who is an arbiter, which is basically they go around and make sure that vampires behave themselves, because vampires are known to humanity, and they've kind of formed this sort of give and take sort of relationship. So vampire blood is used to heal and used in medicines, and humans don't feel like they're food. And it's about Miles and his dog called Church. And Church is a vampire-enhanced Doberman, which is...
Oh, damn.
So she's this massive dog who is hyper-intelligent. And basically she was... her mother was owned by a vampire geneticist who did experiments on her, and the mother unfortunately died, but she was pregnant and she gave birth to Church and another pup who has gone no one knows where. And Miles found Church in a church, hence the name, and raised her, and they're now sort of partners, and they go around and they protect people and they help people, and mostly Church smiles at people and terrifies them, and then growls a lot. She's a very scary dog. She's considerably larger than a Doberman, and she thinks that humans are mostly stupid. In this book, A Deliberate Act of Violence is the first time. The sequel to this is called Pilgrims of the Damned, which came out at the end of last year. And that's the first time I actually wrote a Church point of view chapter. And her disdain for humanity comes through in every word. She just thinks they're the dumbest people in the world and doesn't understand how you haven't gone extinct yet.
Well, all the evidence currently in the real world points to that dog being entirely correct.
yeah, I thought so. She's Church is a lot of fun to write. I've never written sort of a super intelligent animal before. There's Remy, who's in the Harlequin books, who's part fox, part man, but he mostly swears at people and tries to stab them. And Church doesn't have the ability to talk. She's just Church.
Well, when you're ready, go for it. If you're ready.
Okay. I will read chapter 2 of A Deliberate Act of Violence. The Fang and Fog was a jeweller in Soho, London, which had existed since the 18th century, or so the tale went. At one point, they'd been the aristocratic jeweller of choice, making bespoke and exceptionally expensive items while being able to keep their mouth shut about who their clients were. Everyone wanted to believe that the upper classes had found the best hidden shop to make all their finery, and so the Fang and Fog had done a roaring trade for decades. No one had openly ever asked why it was called the Fang and Fog. No one had publicly ever wondered how the proprietor had never appeared to age, or why they only opened at night. And that was exactly how the owner wanted it. right up until the Blitz in 1941, when a German bomb fell in the street outside just as the owner was leaving. Even the most powerful vampires would have a hard time healing from several tons of explosives falling on their heads. The name had remained, even if the owners had changed hands since, and the current human owners were the great-grandchildren of the young man the vampire owner had left everything to. The shop had moved away from catering almost exclusively to aristocracy to become a shop that made vampire jewellery, such as the torque worn by all arbiters. One such arbiter, Mars Watson, stood in the middle of the large bright shop as the March rain pelted down outside. The sun was setting, although considering how much it had rained all day, the sun never bothered to get up in the first place. Not much of an issue for vampires who, contrary to popular belief, could walk around in the daylight without fear of spontaneous combustion, so long as the UV index remained at 0, maybe 1 or 2 at the most. The shop had been open for an hour, and the owner, a 40-something-year-old human with a gaunt enough look that he could have passed for a vampire in one of the old horror films, and his 3 assistants were each going about their daily tasks. 3 customers had come in since the shop opened, all leaving with their new piece of jewellery, while Miles pretended to study the lockets and charms that took up one of the dozen glass cases that littered the shop. Miles was bored of looking at the same few objects, and he took a step to the right, where there was a collection of torques in various styles, including one in bronze, that gave the appearance of pieces of rope intertwined. It was almost identical to the one on his own wrist, which was covered by the sleeve of his long navy raincoat. "You know, you could get some beads for that," one of the assistants told him. Miles looked up at the young blonde woman who he guessed was no older than 25. She was human, as all of the workers were, and had been keen to talk to the vampire arbiter the moment Miles had entered the shop to have a private conversation with the owner. This was day 2 of Miles spending time in the shop. Like the day before, he was going to stay here for a while longer before leaving to allow an ATO, assault team officer, to take his place while he waited nearby. Miles ran his hand through his shoulder-length brown hair, pushing it out of his face. Beads for what? Miles had been born near Stonehaven, Scotland, over 4 centuries earlier, and despite his worldly travels during his time as both human and vampire, the accent was always there. "The beard," the woman said with a cheery smile. She removed a tray of brightly coloured beads from the tray in the glass case beside her and brought them over to him. Miles ran a hand through his chest-length dark beard. "I've tried the bead thing before," he said, with a smile of his own. "It's not for me, Ta." It was hard to explain that it wasn't for him because it brought back memories of his human time, when he was far from a model citizen, when he had done things that the current Miles was ashamed of. "You sure?" she asked, masking any disappointment with another winning smile. She looked down at the torque on his wrist. "Why that one? We have gold and silver. I think we have some with diamonds inlaid. We did one a few years ago with emeralds in it." "It's nae a statement piece," Miles said, "and remember the woman's name, Penelope. It's my badge, like a police officer's shield, although I hasten to add I am nae anything close to a police officer." "The vampire world has a lot of little details like that," she said. "Badges for the houses, badges for the various offices and ranks. How do you remember them all?" Miles shrugged. "You get used to it. How's today gone so far?" "Sold a watch and a diamond ring to a vampire," she said. "We all know why you're here." "Oh, really?" he asked, leaning on top of the glass case. "I assume Frank told you like I asked." "Frank did confirm it, but we already knew. Why else is an arbiter here after 4 vampire jewellers in London have been robbed in the last 3 weeks? We're humans, not idiots." Miles nodded. "I'm sorry. I didn't think any of you were idiots. I just thought it better coming from Frank than me." "Are we safe?" There was a touch of fear in her voice, which Miles would expect. The previous robberies were done at night, and were quick grabs by the assailants. 2 humans got hit, and one of those needed to be treated for a laceration to the face, but otherwise no one was seriously harmed. That had come later, when an arbiter had been nearby on the last robbery, and one of the robbers had used a gun with incendiary ammo on them. It had resulted in 3rd-degree burns on the arm of the vampire. They would heal, but humans robbing vampire establishments using banned weapons was not something that could go unpunished. There was no if when it came to the robbery happening. The Fang and Fog was the last of the jewellers that dealt in vampire items. If the robbers were smart, they'd leave the city while they still could, but Miles was pretty sure that brains weren't high in those who would steal from vampires to begin with. "Aye," Miles said with confidence. Is the vampire who got hurt okay? Miles nodded. I don't think she's best pleased, but she's okay. Incendiary ammunition and other vampire combating weapons were heavily regulated, and anyone found with them illegally was dealt with by the full force of the Assembly. Usually with either an ATO or an arbiter turning up to make your day worse. Thankfully, few humans wanted to play fuck around and find out with a bunch of highly trained vampires. The bell on the door opened and 3 men rushed inside, all wearing balaclavas over their faces. They wore identical work overalls and black boots. One of them carried a shotgun and the other 2 handguns, which they all waved around in a manner suggesting they had little idea what they were actually doing. On the fucking floor, one of the men shouted, while another switched off the interior lights and locked the front door. It'll be fine, Miles said to Penelope, as everyone did as they were told, and got face first onto the floor, with only Miles in an upright seated position against one of the cases. You, the man who had just spoken shouted, pointing at Frank with his handgun. The safe, now. Miles had discussed what to do when the robbery finally happened. He'd made sure that Frank told his staff too. You did what they said. When they said it. You didn't argue. You didn't get smart. Getting smart meant getting hurt. The object was to get out in one piece. The object was to get everyone out in one piece. Frank nodded and got back to his feet. Beta, clear out the cases, the first man said, as he moved through to the back room with Frank, where a stairs led to the safe in the basement. The previous victims had said they'd used Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, because being criminals didn't mean having to be original. The previous crimes had been done quickly, and within a few minutes they left with as much as they could carry. We told you to lay down, the criminal identified as Gamma said, pointing his shotgun at Miles. Mossberg 800 series, Miles said conversationally, specifically designed to keep the incendiary shells inside cooled. It took them a long time to make it work, so I hear. I prefer the Winchester lever-action rifles for incendiary rounds. They managed to figure out how to make sure they leave the barrel at the same speed as a normal round. Gamma's shotgun wavered slightly, but he kept it aimed at Miles. What you're holding there is a military-grade ATO weapon, he continued. A weapon that the ATO, and I assume you know who they are, would be most aggrieved to discover is in the hands of a bunch of human thieves. What the fuck do you know? Gamma said, his tone wavering slightly despite the gruff edge he tried to put on it. I know you've committed several robberies in London over the last few weeks, Miles said, glancing over at Beta, who continued to go through the glass cases. Miles whistled. What the fuck was that? Gamma asked. You should put the gun down, Miles said, pushing just a little at the edge of Gamma's psyche. He didn't have the power or style of House Umber to push into the criminal's mind, to corrupt it, to make him bend or break, but he, like all vampires powerful enough, could push suggestions onto the weaker-minded. They didn't always work, and pushing too hard broke their mind like snapping a twig, but Miles got the impression it wasn't going to go that far. You should open that door and walk out, hand yourselves over to the police, and regret every one of the choices you made that brought you to this moment. Gamma's shotgun wavered a little more. What the fuck is that? Beta shouted, fear dripping from every word, snapping Gamma out of his daze. Gamma turned his head slightly to see what Beta had noticed, and Miles knew he was terrified of what he saw. The fear came off him in waves. That is a dog, Miles said. Her name is Church. She is my dog. That's a fucking horse, Beta said, waving the gun towards a seated Church, who took up most of the doorway. Miles stood in one fluid motion, and Gamma turned to look at him. Don't, Miles commanded, putting a lot more force into his voice than he would have otherwise. Gamma paused, as though frozen in time. Church, Miles continued, stepping by the terrified Gamma and removing the shotgun as he did, is a Doberman Pinscher, or would have been had her mother not been genetically altered with vampire blood. Church yawned, showing her large, sharp teeth. Beta's eyes had not left Church since she'd arrived, but he saw Miles move and swung towards him, the gun coming toward the vampire. Miles moved faster, grabbing the man's hand and crushing the fingers around the trigger and grip before he could get off a shot. He continued to crush them, forcing Beta to his knees. You shouldn't have pointed your gun at my dog, Miles said, before driving his knee into the man's face, breaking his nose, jaw, and orbital bone in the process. He let Better's unconscious body drop to the floor and turned back to Gamma, who had drawn a dagger and was holding it in one perpetually shaking hand. Fucking vampires, Gamma said. You make it harder for the rest of us. How? Miles asked casually. You just do, Gamma snapped. You're an idiot, Miles said as he took a step toward Gamma, who swiped with the dagger. Miles batted his hand aside and slapped him across the face hard enough to send him careering headfirst into the wall where he fell and remained motionless. Miles looked around, picked up the handgun that Beta still had clutched in his shattered hand, emptied both it and the shotgun, and opened the door, tossing the weapons out into the street, next to Church. Good girl, he said. I won't be long. Church's tail wagged enthusiastically, and Miles motioned for the two assistants to leave. Church, take them to the ATOs. Church barked once for yes. Miles turned to the assistants. Go with her. The ATOs are waiting up the street. Thank you, both of them said in unison as they ran out into the night, with the exceptionally large dog in the lead. Miles turned back to the shop and walked across the darkened floor to the door at the far end, out of sight of the front door. He pushed it open and stepped inside. There was a small room to the left of the hallway beyond, which was where the staff ate lunch, and two bathrooms to the right. But in front of Miles was a staircase that went down to the basement and up to the roof. The former was Miles's destination, and he took the steps 3 at a time, bouncing from foot to foot as he made his way down the stairs as quickly as possible. Upon reaching the door at the bottom, Miles pushed it open and stepped inside. It was a good-sized room, used for storage on a number of metal shelving units or inside lock cabinets. At the far end of the maze of shelves was another door. Miles heard the raised voice of Alpha the second he'd stepped inside the storage room. The final robber was screaming at Frank to hurry up, while Frank told him that the lock was on a timer that would only open every half hour. It was nonsense, and Miles hadn't told him to say anything of the sort, but Frank was buying time for everyone upstairs to get out safely. Miles walked silently through the storage room, easily avoiding anything that might make a noise. He spotted Alpha through the open door, his back turned to the entrance as he screamed at a kneeling Frank to open the safe. The scent of blood reached Miles's nose, and he paused as Frank turned to look at the robber, giving Miles a chance to see the bleeding cut on his forehead. Alpha turned, bringing his gun up to the storage room, as Miles stepped to the doorway of the small office. He grabbed the gun with one hand, wrenched it free of the robber's grip, while taking hold of the man's throat with his free hand. With one hand, Miles lifted the robber off the ground and looked down at Frank. You okay? He asked. Been better, Frank said with a wry smile. Pain laced through Miles's arm as the Alpha stabbed him in the elbow, leaving a 4-inch blade protruding from his flesh. Miles dropped the criminal, who ran out of the storeroom. That little shit stabbed me, Miles said, almost in disbelief that someone would dare. He pulled the blade free. It was a small kitchen knife, the type you use to cut an apple. Miles knew that the wound would bleed for a few seconds before it closed up. I'll be fine, Frank said, getting to his feet, reaching for a hanky in his pocket and placing it over his wound. Don't you need to go and get him? I think he's got bigger problems than me, Miles said as he helped a wobbly Frank through the storage room and up the stairs. The shop above was empty, and apart from a few smashed cabinets, it didn't look as though it would be too much work to put everything back in working order. It would have been blissfully quiet if not for the screaming outside. Miles walked to the door where he found Church sitting atop the remaining robber. The man was screaming for help, while 2 ATO officers, both in navy blue tactical gear, laughed at him. Good girl, Miles said, scratching Church behind one ear, her tail wagging, as the man beneath her whimpered. A medic took Frank away to get treatment, and Miles crouched beside the whimpering man. Where'd you get the guns? He asked. Get this fucking dog off me, please, the man said. Please. Miles looked up at the 2 ATO officers, both of whom had their sternest faces on, but he could see that they were still trying not to snigger at what was happening to the idiot who had run away from an arbiter straight into Church. Tell me, and Church will leave, Miles said softly. Don't make me ask again. Church let out a long, low growl. He calls himself the Wolf, the man said, his words spilling out. The Wolf, Miles asked. Seriously? The man did his best approximation of a nod while trying not to make any movement that Church might consider to be threatening. Where do I meet this Wolf? Miles asked, with a sigh. He removed the robber's balaclava, revealing a pale-skinned man who was no older than mid-20s. He was clean-shaven and had a tattoo of a bloody knife next to his right ear. It was about the size of a matchstick, and to Miles' eyes looked truly ridiculous. He has a place in Kensington, the man said, up Uxbridge Street. Go all the way to the end, past Jameson. There's a grey door with Wolf written in capital letters. He's in a house? Miles asked. Warehouse, the man said. The whole street on that side are a bunch of garages and warehouses. If you're lying to me, there's no way you can hide now, Miles said. You want to make sure you've told me everything. Knock 3 times, wait to 3, and knock twice more, the man said. Armed guards. There were always 5 or 6 guys with him when we went. Human or vampire? Human, definitely human. The wolf's real name? No clue, the criminal said. Can I go now? Church, do you think he's told us enough? Miles asked. Church leaned down and sniffed the man's throat before getting off him. The criminal let out a long sigh of relief as the 2 ATO agents arrested him. Remember, if you're lying, I know where you'll be, Miles told the young criminal as he was led down the street towards a waiting van. Been a productive night, a man said from behind Miles. Miles turned and shook the man's hand. His name was Jonathan Holt, an ATO commander who had been in charge of the agents used in the robbery investigation. It had been the first time Miles had worked with him, although his reputation of being a no-nonsense commander had been proven correct. Jonathan was 6'4" and built like a linebacker for an American football team, a sport that Jonathan spoke about often. He'd been born and raised in Tennessee back when the Wild West was just everyday life. He had a bald head and shaved face and wore an expensive tailored suit under the ATO-inscribed stab vest that all agents had to wear when on assignment. Knives were a lot more of a problem against vampires than guns for the most part. 3 arrests, Jonathan said with a winning smile. I assume you'll be writing in your report about how well my team and I operated. Miles laughed, although not because he found it funny. Jonathan appeared to have a bit of a need to constantly ensure he and his team got credit for everything they did, with an emphasis on him. Miles had no intention of leaving their contribution out. He knew that some arbiters were less happy to share the credit, but that wasn't how he worked. Even so, he found Jonathan's need to get what was his a little bit grating. Of course, Miles said. I caught them with your help. The punishment proportion of this investigation is yours. I still need to find out who's supplying the weapons. You need help? You know who to call, Jonathan said, that winning smile right back. Frank and his people okay? Miles asked. They'll be fine, Jonathan said. No one was really hurt, but they've been taken to the nearest human hospital as a precaution. I'll go with my people to interview our prisoners, see if we can figure out if more of these weapons are out there for public use. These idiots strike me about as smart as a sack of rocks. I'm a little surprised they even figured out that these were vampire businesses. Yeah, I've been thinking that myself, Miles said, as 2 ATO agents went into the shop to continue their end of the investigation. Good hunting, Jonathan said with a wink and walked away. Miles set off towards his car, parked a few streets over, and Church padded after him. She whined and nudged his hand with her huge face. They reached the car, a forest green Mercedes AMG GLE. It was a large car, but with Church, you needed the room. He opened the rear door and let the dog jump in. What did you think of Jonathan? He asked as Church lay down. She let out a slight whine. I'm nae a fan either, Miles said. Church barked once, agreeing with him. Miles shut the rear passenger door and after opening the driver's side door, got into the car and took a moment to relax. It was a long time until daylight. Shall we go hunt a wolf? Miles asked. Church barked once again. Excellent choice, Miles said, and started the engine. And that's the end of the chapter.
Oh, fantastic. It was great.
Fun.
Yeah, really good to get a full chapter as well. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
What a world. I really enjoyed the way that you did the world building, and it was very much show don't tell.
Yeah,
it really worked.
Thank you. I like world building. I'm a bit of a build the pieces of the puzzle kind of. I know some authors they don't like the world building as much, but I love it. It means research, and I like research. So
I think some people think that world building is just creating a coherent world as well, isn't it? But it's not just that. It's also the way that you communicate that world building that's a part of the task, isn't it? And so the bit where you have near the start where you're talking about the Fang and Fog, and there's the moment where it's mentioned that because the vampire dies suddenly, the humans that he'd willed things to get his shop, And that just does a whole bunch of heavy lifting with barely a finger lifted. Where it's like, okay, so they're cohabiting to the point where they actually like cross the races, I guess you'd call it, like in order to inherit things, which is incredibly cool.
Yeah, there's this world of the assembly. There are minor and great vampire houses, and each one has its own bloodline. So Miles's bloodline, he's part of House Venator, and he has his bloodline means that every bloodline gives every vampire their own gift.
That means hunter, right? Venator, I think.
If it does, yes. They're named because when they came about, they used to hunt vampires. Because before vampires were known, back in the Dark Ages and all the rest of it, and humans weren't so keen on vampires, and vampires thought of humans as little more than cattle. And every time there was a vampire outbreak of people who just wouldn't play ball, House Venator was sent in to go and encourage people to behave themselves. And they have an innate ability that when they unleash it, whichever vampire they're touching turns human. They lose the connection to their vampire side.
Oh, shit.
So they are, as far as, because they all have their own little quirks and powers. So a House Umbra is telekinesis and telepathy and messing with people's heads and stuff like that. And then you've got House Rampart, who can turn their body modifications so they can have arms of steel and things like that. And House Barbarous, who are a bit more kind of the stereotypical vampire. They need a constant intake of blood. But they're also super strong and super fast and hard to kill. So, but all of them fear House Venator. All of them, because they can take it away. Even if it's only for a few minutes. And and Miles, having been turned into a vampire by the first lord of the house, whose name is Dressed, they fear him a little bit more than some of the others, maybe. And he left the house. He joined the Assembly and became an arbiter. And the Assembly are basically the UN of the vampire world. And the arbiters are their peacekeepers of sorts. And so his whole job is to go around the world and keep the peace. And when there are vampires hunting humans or humans hunting vampires, which does happen, the first book is all about humans hunting vampires in America called The Magistrate. And he has to kind of figure out how to stop all of it because it's going to cause more problems down the road.
Oh, that's fascinating. Like, just on this particular chapter, I really enjoyed the stuff about the incendiary ammo being banned because of the sort of basically racial profiling that it implies.
Yeah, there's two weapons that humans have developed. There's an incendiary ammo even, and there's a knife which has a heat element in it, which when activated causes heat to build up. And sunlight doesn't kill vampires; it's UV light and heat. So, stabbing someone with a knife that can burst something into flames is going to do a lot more damage than a normal knife.
Yeah, I've got to give a shout out to how funny it is. Like, there's a lot of great little lines in there. You properly tipped me over. What's that? That is a dog. Immediately I was like, oh, this is good. But then the guy's responsive, that is a horse. Yeah, wicked. Well, he stabbed me. All that, just little touches of humor that really sell the world because things aren't serious all the time. And
yes,
it brings it way to life.
Yes, I've always used humor in all of my books. Sometimes it's profane, or just swearing and whatever, but I've always used humor because people use humor, and I don't mean humor in a Marvel movie kind of way, which is sometimes very jarring.
Yeah.
But I want to put bits in there because Miles is, he's not this stoic, only one emotion kind of person. He's very sarcastic and he's very smart assy. And I quite like the fact that he doesn't really take threats seriously if he knows for a fact that the threat is nothing he needs to take seriously. He will mock the people who's trying to kill him to their face quite happily. And then obviously Church as well. She's always up for terrifying people by sitting on them or smiling at them or growling behind them. And it's always entertaining to write the pair. They have some very funny bits where someone will try and run away and Miles will send Church after them, and then they'll be all you can hear is them shouting and screaming and begging as they're being dragged forcefully along the road by a very large dog.
I do like it when like animal companions are used like a bit like that. The only one that comes to mind that was even similar, and obviously this is completely different because of the content, but it reminded me of Butcher from The Boys with his dog.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes.
And that's a good comparison because that's a lot of fun. And generally, like I got like that kind of like world weariness. 4 centuries of the world will give you that, won't it? I think from this character, it was giving me like almost like Constantine vibes as well. And I was just really digging it.
Thank you. Miles is definitely at a point in his very lengthy life where he has seen and done a lot of things, not all of them good. When he was human, he was in the Royal Navy. And then this is back in the 16th century. So he became a mercenary, he joined a gang, and you learn more about how he became a vampire and why he became a vampire. And he is yes, there's I get the feeling that when I'm writing him, my overriding thing is, would he sigh at this information? Like, is this just when something happens and he finds someone or someone does something awful, would he just be kind of like rolling his eyes, going, "Oh, God damn it, not again"?
Yeah.
And often, yes, he is very much seriously, you're just making my life hard now. Stop. The deliberate act of violence, the first chapter, the first chapters of every book are of a different person who becomes important to the story. It's not a prologue, because I did prologues for all the Harlequin books, and I just wanted to do something different this time around. But this story, he becomes more and more serious throughout it as things become more and more serious. You more so than in the first book, you see what happens when you really piss off a 400-year-old vampire.
I really like that device. I don't know what it's called, that device, but the narrative device of the main character, like really, really resisting the call to adventure, really resisting the call to heroism, and eventually, or just like a slow, gradual build, and it gets to a point where everybody should not have fucked with this person, is a really big moment. I like where this is going. I like where it's going. Miles seems like my kind of character.
Miles has the rule that Miles has basically is, you can threaten him, you can try and kill him. That's fine. That's poor for the job. But the second you threaten a church, you've just forfeited your right to life.
Yeah.
And he will go after you with everything he's got. So in the second book, it happens fairly early in. He goes on holiday. He needs a break, and he goes on holiday, and he takes Church with him, and some terrible people decide that that's a really good idea to try and kill him whilst he's on holiday. And it ends really badly for everybody, including Miles as well. And then from there on, the story kind of takes on its own world, and he becomes more and more serious as more and more things come out. And A Deliberate Act of Violence was a lot of fun to write. It was a lot of fun to write.
No spoilers, please, because I am definitely
no spoilers. No. And in the third one as well, Pilgrims of the Damned is quite different in tone, because this is The second one is Miles is dragged into something that he doesn't want to be dragged into, but he's this is his investigation, so he's kind of dragged into it because of that. The third one, he's dragged into it as a favor for somebody else, and his patience is on a so much lower level in the third book than on this one, because he didn't want to do anything to do with this in the first place. So and also all three books, the more books I do, the more mythology of the vampire world comes out, and the more politics and how all the political sort of machinations of all these vampire houses comes out. And I really like writing all that stuff, all the sort of bits that I've made up for the world of vampires, basically.
I think what I liked about it so much, you summed up with something you said quite early in this little chat, where you said that's the sort of person he is. And I think it's because you are writing vampires as people. You know, they're so easy to write as monsters or just MacGuffins. As soon as they've got a depth of personality, they go back to being, you know, what they were when you were kids, these just super cool, powerful, supernatural beings.
Yeah.
But with a personality, suddenly they can be lovable or scary or, you know, not just a Halloween costume.
Yeah, I grew up watching, you know, Hammer House and the Christopher Lee vampire books, films, sorry, and things like that. And I kind of wanted to move away from I wanted to make vampires the ability to be scary again.
Yeah.
But I also wanted it to be that if you know that vampires exist, not all of them are going to be scary all the time. That kind of level of fear is going to have evaporated a bit, because they're going to be on the telly and they're going to be in books on the screen. And there's the fourth book at the moment that I'm writing. It has a vampire singer who's been around for centuries singing, and she's really good at it. And entertainment people and things like that. But I wanted to keep that corner of the vampire world where there are very, very scary vampires. And that's the kind of corner that Miles sort of has to straddle between the two.
It's very cool. You actually that does bring me to another point that I wrote down, which was that I enjoyed the little aside about how that human could have passed for a vampire as they were portrayed in old movies.
Yes, yes.
I thought that was really funny, because I could imagine the vampire, because the ways that you'd already built how the vampires were with Miles.
Yeah.
I could imagine the vampires seeing humans making vampire movies and just being like, "That's so funny," just laughing at humans for their misconceptions and things like that.
In the first book, Miles talks about how vampires tried to make vampire films seem like vampires were scary. They tried to make vampire films based about vampires and tried to make humans think that we're scary. You should leave us alone and just let us live our lives. And instead, humans just thought they were really cool. And it had a massive backfire, because all of a sudden, vampires have tried to do their own PR and make people be scared of them. And instead, humans are like, that's pretty cool. Can you do the bat thing and stuff like that? And it worked really badly. So now they've kind of decided to move away from making movies about themselves and stuff, because they're just making it worse.
So what was the watershed moment then? When was there a particular date when sort of the human race was made aware of the vampire race, or have they always lived?
They've always lived side by side, but not everyone has always known that vampires were real. But as it became increasingly clear with technology that they couldn't hide forever. People, you know, there's now, you know, the internet is a thing and it's coming out, and people can communicate quicker. There's telephones, there's satellites, there's facial recognition, there's all this kind of stuff that's coming in. So after the Second World War, vampires kind of took a different tactic to try and kind of say, we should all join forces. We should let everybody know that we're real. And we should tell them, yeah, hey, we're real, and all this stuff that we've been doing for you in the kind of darkness and in the shadows, we can just tell you about it. You can thank us later for all of the medicine we've been giving you to keep you alive. It's all based on our blood, and it just basically saves your lives. You are welcome, all of you. So that kind of so after that, it's sort of the fear and stuff was already kind of not really there anymore. So yeah, that was sort of it wasn't a specific thing. It was a series of things that kind of led up to vampires, the assembly, and the heads, the first lords and ladies of the houses. Basically saying we can't stay in the shadows forever because every time they try and stay in the shadows, humans hunt them. And every time the humans hunt them, humans die. And killing humans just makes things worse.
Yeah.
Because then they tell their people who survive, tell their tale of the vampires killed all the humans. So
no, it feels like the world is like quite fantastical, but it's built on practical logic. And I think I like that. That's one of the sort of the flavors of this that really appeals to me. I think. I think it also helps that it's the scenario and where people are in it and how they move through it is established really clearly by your writing. Do you have a particular approach to writing movement and violence and things like that?
I grew up watching 80s Golden Harvest films. So Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung and all those guys. And then graduated into watching a lot of anime in the 90s and Japanese films and Korean films and Thai films and films from the Philippines and lots of Asian cinema. And then French cinema like Brotherhood of the Wolf and all this kind of stuff. And I was always really, really drawn to how fight scenes are framed.
Yeah.
And positioning and how you know, even when like Jackie Chan fight scenes goes on 5 times longer than any actual fight in real life would ever go on for. Yeah. I always quite enjoyed that kind of look at things. So that's how I frame fight scenes. I frame them as if I am directing that fight scene from a film, or choreographing that fight scene from a film. And then obviously the John Wick stuff and all this kind of stuff. It's gotten that's American films used to be terrible at it. Lots of quick cuts and like just close ups of faces when they're trying to fight and things. And that's sort of how I frame it in my head. So I will run through it in my head, and then I will figure out. And occasionally, if there's more than 2 people, I use minis. So I can figure out where people are.
What are your minis of choice? Because I have to ask.
Warhammer, mostly.
Man.
I've got a bunch of Age of Sigmar and 40k Warhammer stuff. Most of it's still not painted or put together, but that's not the point. I have some kill team bits and pieces and things like that, and they're really good for if I've written large scale battle scenes before. And nothing is more frustrating than writing large scale battle than not really remembering where people are. So using minis, specifically ones that I've painted up to do so these are the good guys and these are the bad guys and this is where they move and stuff. It's an absolute lifesaver. It makes life so much easier.
A great excuse to buy more minis.
Yeah, definitely.
That is a very valid point. Although my room is now becoming more minis than me.
More minis than macros. So that was actually quite a loaded question because we encountered you for the first time at the World Fantasy Con, which has just gone by late last year in Brighton at the Writing Fighting panel, which was our favorite. I'm speaking for Nico here, but I'm fairly sure this was our favorite panel of the whole event. I think there were loads of really good ones, but like this was really good, and it felt like at the end, I think the moderator was Alistair Spark, and she said that she could have this panel could go all day, and the energy in the room was that everybody listening would also like it to go all day. So yeah, really, really captive audience for that one, and we had to come and talk to you and see whether you'd be interested in coming on. So I'm really glad that I've got to listen to you tell a story on here, because that was my immediate want after listening to that panel. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. It was a wonderful panel. I mean, when you've got people like Juliet McKenna and Anna and Miles Cameron and all on there who know, and Miles and Juliet know more about actual fighting than anyone I've ever met, I think. I just have a really good encyclopedic style knowledge of Jackie Chan films, and have watched most of them, and other 1980s Hong Kong martial arts films are available, not just Jackie Chan. But yeah, no. So it was a great panel. It was a lot of fun. It was really interesting. I think Anna asking everyone if we get sad when we kill off characters, and me saying no, why would I get sad killing off a character, surprised her a little bit. Because I don't get sad, because I know who dies at the beginning of the book and then they die. I don't really dwell on that. They are occasionally given a reprieve, and occasionally someone who isn't supposed to have died dies, but for the most part, yeah. But no, it was a lot of fun. It was a good panel, and I really enjoyed myself. And I was a little nervous beforehand because everybody else on there really does know their fighting, and I really have a very little practical knowledge apart from some Muay Thai and some Kali. So yeah, but it was good, and I got to meet.
Yeah, go on. Sorry,
and I got to meet you guys as well, and that was awesome. And now I get to be here on this podcast, and that's very awesome too. So if anyone listening is ever kind of like, oh, should I go to the World Con or the Big Con or any con, go, because you'll meet cool people.
100%.
Flattery will get you everywhere, young man.
and also, just say you didn't come across as nervous at all. You were very confident on that panel. So
I have. Thank you. I've done a lot of panels, and I'm not nervous when I'm on the panel. It's just the getting up and then seeing there's a huge crowd of people, and then being like, okay, I'll be fine. I've done quite a few panels where it's been the last panel of the day and everyone's half plastered, which is always entertaining. But yeah, there's always a bit of nerves. Will it go well? Will I have an answer to any of the questions I'm asked? But I can usually make something up. When someone asks me a question, I can usually just come up with something off the cuff of my head. So,
well, I mean, there's more of that coming.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of that, obviously we've got some interview questions for you, and I know I said this to you before we went on mic, but it's actually my favorite thing is when people are going off the cuff, and it's like the conversations that come from questions rather than necessarily the answers to the questions. And I think that's the same thing as being on a panel, right? Because you just have to react, and what people are interested in, or at least what I'm interested in, is having somebody talented like yourself ask the question and then seeing what they do with it. I think it's like there's no right or wrong answers to them, and it's always fascinating, and you always learn something.
Yes, and so, it's always fun to do it with people like RJ Barker and things like that, who I don't think has ever planned any panel they've ever done ever. And I love RJ; he's wonderful, and I've done panels with him. And before a panel at a fantasy con a few years ago, the moderator came to me and said, "Oh, I've got all these questions for us. We're going to have a talk about this." And I said, "RJ's on this panel," and she went, "Yeah." And I said, "You met RJ before?" "No." He said, "We're going to talk about badgers." Because whatever your panel questions are, I'm really sorry, but the conversation will come around to badgers or something else equally irrelevant to this panel. And she went, "Oh, okay." And afterwards, she came up to me and went, "Yeah, my questions were completely pointless. We didn't really cover any of them. We just spoke about stuff." And it's always fun to do.
In a way, though, isn't it? It's like I think it's reassuring that because the prep is what is a comfort blanket, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think a good moderator needs to be able to kind of swing with the craziness that sometimes doing a panel invokes. And certain people authors and artists or whoever's on the panel, they're really, really good. Some of them really want to have notes. They want to have notes. They want to know what they're doing, and that's fine. And some people just like to be like, surprise me, and we'll talk about it. And I quite like that. I quite like being in the moment, having to think of an answer.
So I'll shoot the question straight at you then, which is who inspired you to start telling your own stories?
Oh, all right. This is I've told the story a few times over the course of my career. Basically, when I was about 13, 14, I had an English teacher called Mr. Piercy, and in English we had a list of books that we'd read, and every month we had to, or every week, I can't remember now, we had to update it. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, mine were the Ian Livingstone, Steve Jackson, Choose Your Own Adventure books, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he took me aside one day and he said, look, Steve, go into the school library and pick a proper book that doesn't involve you using dice or a pencil or drawing a map, and read it. And I was like, okay, fine. So I went next door and I picked up Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett and Legend by David Gemmell. And I devoured them. And then I went to the library and picked up Stephen King's It, which I was far too young to be reading. And Intensity, I think, by Dean Koontz, and the first vampire book by Anne Rice, and a whole bunch of others. I had about 12 books, I think. And then over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, I just read them all. And right then and there, I knew I wanted to write books. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you gave yourself quite an education there to start with.
Yeah, yeah. It was quite the opening few months of what became, I think, by the end of the year, I had the most books on the list of books of anyone in the class, and it was just a massive stuff. Because my dad would go down once a week to the library and get books, and I'd come with him now, and I'd get loads of books and bring them home, and I'd read them all. And then my dad was into stuff like Sharp and things like that.
Oh yeah,
Cornwell. He still is into to Bernard Cornwell, and so I would read his Bernard Cornwell. And then as I got older, I would keep reading his. So I read Agincourt and all this kind of stuff. And I think as an author, if you're going to reading outside of the genre you normally read in is really helpful anyway. But that's where my love for writing and wanting to become a writer went. So Mr. Piercy, thank you, because he was my favourite teacher as well.
I don't know if Mr. Piercy's still with us, but did he get to, or has he got to see anything you've written? Did he get to see?
I do not know. I don't know. I did call the school up and ask, if I sent you a book, can you forward it on to him? And they said they would see what they could do. And I sent him a copy of Crimes Against Magic when it came out, so 2012. But I never heard anything back. So I don't know is the honest answer. I like to think that he was aware that I had become a published author, because that would be really cool.
I mean, I've got
seekers. You're now Piercy seekers.
Yeah, Piercy seekers. Yeah, I've got a quick take on it though, because can you imagine you've got this kid in your class, and they're clearly, they've got this voracious mind, but it's being sort of a little bit limited maybe from your perspective, and then you just give them a little push, and then all of a sudden they are the top reader in your class. How satisfying that must be to have just given somebody that gift. What an amazing guy. It was
a good class. We had 2 creative writing bits that had to go into our GCSE. And it was 1 creative writing bit. I did it twice. Basically, we all had to do a creative writing bit to go in our GCSE coursework. And I wrote, we did it in class, and I wrote this story about an ex-CIA assassin on the run from his CIA handlers. I was 14 when I wrote this, 15 maybe, in the deserts of Nevada or Arizona, both places I've never been, so I'd have no idea about geography, even back then. And he took me aside afterwards. He said, I cannot send this to the examiner because it is full of swearing and violence. And just no, I can't. You will not get marked for it. So he said, you need to write something that has no swearing and no violence, preferably. And I went, okay, fine. So I wrote a story about a boy and his pet frog. And he gave me an A for it. And he sent it off to... So that became part of my coursework for my English language or literature. I can't remember now, GCSE. So that kind of started my so English, basically. My English class was where I found my love of writing and reading.
Your first agent as well, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I can't sell this.
Yeah.
I can't sell this to the exam board, man. You're going to have to give me something for the cheap.
He was very apologetic, but he'd gone through with a big red pen, and I just remember looking at it and him going, I've marked every swear word. And I was just looking at it going, oh, that's a lot, isn't it? That's like a lot. So yeah, I had to rewrite that so that, but it was fun, and that's where my love of writing comes from, and reading, and stuff like that. Really,
lovely.
So, other than Warhammer Nerd, in which we are kindred spirits,
yes.
Do you feel connected to a particular culture or subculture? And if you do, has that shaped your writing at all?
Oh, that's a good question. I read quite a lot of the 40k books, like library books.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to be a weird answer, but whilst I can't condone the Night Lords, I really like the Night Lords books. The Soul Hunter by Aaron Dembski Bone, I think.
Bowden, yeah.
And also the trilogy that he wrote. They were the first real Warhammer books that I read. And that kind of proved that was one of those things that said, so you can write about a real evil bastard and him be the main character, so long as you make everybody else even worse. I was like, okay.
For any listeners who aren't Warhammer coded like we are,
I didn't get that either. Actually, what is a Night Lord?
The Night Lords are a chapter of Space Marines, but they're the naughty variety.
Yes.
Imagine a group of Batmans who all flay people. That's about the simplest version of it I can give.
Yeah. There's a whole thing about them basically coming into a system, not even attacking it, taking everybody up into their spaceship, killing them all, and then just dropping them over the cities of this world, as if to say, "Guess what's going to happen to you guys next?" And I just thought that was actually quite Batman. Like, that's the minimum amount of effort for a maximum amount of return.
Yeah.
And I they are evil. I mean, they are evil in a way that you barely read about, but I do also find them to be quite an entertaining chapter. If we're talking about good guy chapters, I like the White Scars.
It's the White Scars. Motorbikes are cool.
The motorbikes are cool, and they're Mongols riding motorbikes, and that's awesome. And Space Wolves. and Space Wolves, because it's Vikings in space, and you can't go wrong with Vikings in space.
So, are there any other like subcultures that you're connected? It seems like you take your influences from quite varied points. So, are there any others that spring to mind?
I do take my influences from all over the place. Like I said, I watched a lot of anime growing up. So things like Ninja Scroll and Wicked City, Monster City, Ghost in the Shell, and all those kinds of things. They definitely gave me an impression of how to think about writing a scene so that it's the most impactful way of writing it and the most interesting for the reader. Because the thing about about anime is that it just looks cool, and especially when they're incorporating action scenes and magic and monsters and all the rest of it, they can do things that they don't really do in other medium. So that was always a big thing for me. I don't think in terms of other Warhammer, I do tend to gravitate towards the bad guys because I find them more interesting. Than as a rule. In fact, in a lot of things, I find bad guys to be more interesting or as interesting. I read the Empire of Jay Kristoff's new book, Empire of the Vampire.
Yeah.
And the bad guys in that are just great. They're just evil vampires, and they're wonderful. And the good guys are great too, but the bad guys are really, really good. And so, yeah, I think I've probably gone off on a tangent now, haven't I?
Yeah. Have you ever tried? Have you ever tried writing a Black Library book? Because we've had a couple of authors that have written for the Black Library on.
I did. I got asked to write for the Black Library book. I got asked to write a something for their crime imprint, and I wrote it, and it just never worked out. And sometimes it doesn't. And if it ever comes to the point of would I do it again? Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I got to write interesting stuff. But yeah, I think it's the Black Library is a very, very difficult thing to write for because you've got so much history and so much lore, and just because you think this would be really cool, if it goes against something that was once written 15 years ago in a handbook somewhere, then it's no, you can't do that because that goes against established law. A bit like Star Wars, I assume, although I've never written for Star Wars. Anyone wants to ask me if I want to write for Star Wars, the answer is yes, I do.
I mean, we can ask you, but we can't really follow through.
Unfortunately, we'd just be leading you on.
Let me write for Star Wars.
When you have something from the perspective of a B1 battle droid and his friend who is a frog, as we know you've written frogs before.
That's true. Yeah, I have. I think as the thing about being fans of fandom, be it Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Warhammer, whatever, is we all get those stories. We all have a story. If you're a fan of Marvel, everyone has a Marvel story in their head. They think, I'd like to tell that story. If you're a writer, definitely. So I think I've never met an author who isn't into Star Wars who doesn't have a Star Wars story in their head, waiting to go.
Primed at the pump. Just
yeah. All they need is some bigwig somewhere to say, you know what? Here's some money. Write that story.
It's a shame because George, for a while, was just letting anyone write one. There were so many.
Oh,
and then Disney put them all in a skip.
the old Legends books. Oh, good lord! It was a bit of a crapshoot as to what you were getting with some of those books.
Oh, yeah.
I remember reading the big. I can't remember what they were called now, but it's the one where they throw a moon at Chewbacca and all sorts of stuff, and it's just mad. And it was just bonkers. Like they must have been smoking something. That's the only way I can describe it. They some of those books were completely bonkers. And I've read the new stuff from Disney. It's very good. Some of it's very good that I've read, but I don't know. It's not quite it doesn't have that magic of anything can happen that the old kind of Star Wars felt a little bit like the Timothy Zahn books and stuff like that. But I have read some of the new stuff, and I really like I read the Old Republic, not Old Republic, New Republic, whatever they're called, New Republic. Set before the prequel book films. I quite enjoyed that. Set before the Acolyte TV show as well, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I quite enjoyed those. They've been quite good. They're very good at the lightsaber fights, and the audio versions are excellent. They've got little sounds and stuff that happens, like little droid sounds and things, and I think that's quite cool.
Before we get too far from Star Wars, what did you think of Andor?
I really liked Andor. I thought it was great. I thought it was. Sorry.
Good, you can stay.
Yeah, I loved Andor. I think it's the best Star Wars TV show since probably the Clone Wars. a completely different. It was political. There was intrigue. It was mean. It was exactly how that period of time would have been. There was there are some people in the Star Wars fandom who still have this idea of the rebellion should have been whiter than white. They're the good guys. They don't get their hands dirty. But that's not how rebellions are fought.
Nah.
Rebellions aren't fought by saying, no, we're not going to do that because we're the good guys.
Listen, if they'd missed that 2-foot wide hole, they'd be terrorists, not rebels.
Well,
yes, that's how the story works.
Yeah, and it was great, and I loved it, and I thoroughly enjoyed seeing the evil lady get her comeuppance at the end.
Yeah,
because she was awful.
I'm not ashamed to admit this, but my second most listened to track of the entirety of last year was the Niamos Morlana club mix, which is the bit where the senator dances at her party.
Oh, okay.
It was actually I listened to it on repeat for about 2 months after that show came out.
I think it was on every time I came to your house for most of the year.
Yeah.
That's superb.
Yeah.
I have the soundtrack actually. I listen to it whilst I work. Not all the time. Not anywhere near as much as that. That's
yeah. It was.
No,
I got a bit obsessed.
But yeah, I have. It's one of many soundtracks because that's what I listen to whilst I write usually, TV and video game soundtracks.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite composer?
A favorite composer? Ooh,
just of TV and video, because that is Nicholas Brittle that did the Andor soundtrack, and I've got a bunch of his stuff saved. But obviously, there's people like Ramin Djawadi that did Game of Thrones.
Yes, that's very good. Yes. Who's the one that I listen to quite a bit? Mick Gordon, his Doom soundtrack.
Oh yeah, Mick Gordon.
Yeah.
Howard Shore.
Oh, classic. Yeah,
of course.
Oh God, I can't remember the name of the guy who did the Final Fantasy VII. Soundtrack.
Nico, do you know that one? I'm not sure.
I should, but I don't.
Another big name
Nobuo?
is McCreary. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. I think it's I can't remember now. Is it Nobuo? I think the Final Fantasy VII author. I'm probably butchering his name because he's obviously Japanese.
Uematsu.
Uematsu, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Big fan of his work. His is on repeat. What was the other? I see. So yeah, no, I listened to quite a lot of video game soundtracks and Jeremy Zuckerman and there's a whole bunch, like just a whole bunch.
I do find myself sort of, if I'm seeing a new show and I'm like, oh, this looks like it might be quite good, and then if I see a composer that I like, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in. It's actually started to be a really important ingredient for me, which sounds really silly because of course music is really important, but I think you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. If I'm watching a TV show or a film or playing a game, and the music is like, this is really good, I'll immediately go and see if I can find the soundtrack. Arcane is one that I listen to quite a lot. Vox Machina.
Yeah.
The Alan Wake 2 soundtrack is really good and stuff like that. Even Astrobot. Love Astrobot. Love the soundtrack. Use it in happier moments. The Bloodborne soundtrack gets listened to constantly. And the Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So the Howard Shore and
the only problem I've had with the Howard Shore stuff, because it's clearly iconic, but that's actually the problem. Like every single track is iconic and tied to really key moments in movies, and they tend to have like 3 or 4 different moods inside each track because it doesn't quite fit the album structure. So you can be listening to some Shire music, and then all of a sudden it's the hammer and anvil of Isengard, and it's like, oh shit, that's not that's not my vibe.
Yeah. It's the tonally. I have to be in a place where I don't mind the shifts, because obviously sometimes when I'm writing, I don't want to write a serious death scene and have Astrobots, poppy, sort of K-pop-esque kind of music going on, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it has to be because Cyberpunk's a good one. That's a really good soundtrack to write to. But again, that has bits where it kind of flicks between quite intense and then quite quiet moments, and they flick quite quickly because the video game just is like that. And but after a while, when I'm typing, I tend to just kind of cut out all noise around me. So I can listen to whole albums and not have actually heard a single thing that's happened.
I'm going to say possibly the most obvious thing I've ever said on this podcast right now. I've recently been doing some Spielberg rewatches, and John Williams can't half-write a fucking soundtrack.
Yeah, he can.
If we're talking about, I would feel remiss if I didn't say how good John Williams is, but it's another one that I don't think you can write to, because when that Sting in Jurassic Park main theme hits, you got to stop and think about dinosaurs. You can't be writing something else.
Yeah. I had it was like some sort of compilation of his on the other day, and I was just writing along, and then the Superman theme hits, and it's just that opening note of that Superman theme, and I'm just automatically not writing anymore because I'm like, this is about to be the Superman theme. I'm gonna have to listen to this because it's great. Because it's just one of those pieces of music where you hear, well, I hear it, and I'm just like smiling. And it's why when I went to see the most recent Superman film, which I really enjoyed, and they have that little bit of that that bit in there. As soon as it came on the screen, I grinned. Just that little kind of like the moment, the crescendo of it before it starts to get up into the whole John Williams-esque Superman thing.
I really enjoyed that movie.
I did. I thought it was great.
It got a lot of
really
stick from some people, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought it was really nice to see a completely unrepentant good guy be a good guy.
Yep.
And that be a form of rebellion.
And I really, really liked the Lex Luthor.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult, is that his name? I think it is.
Yeah.
A Lex Luthor who is just evil because he's just evil. He's just an unrepentant asshole. He even says it in the film, and I've wanted someone, a Lex Luthor, to say this for so long. I didn't do this because I did this so I could kill you. I'm not killing you because I did it. Because he just hates him so much, and I loved that they kind of got that kind of vibe of Lex Luthor hates Superman. Not it's not a, well, I don't like him. It's a in the bones hate, and I thought that they caught that really. And also, Mr. Terrific was brilliant.
Yes, I did enjoy
stole the film. Absolutely brilliant. So no, I really enjoyed it, and I having read what I think the Supergirl comic is based on, the film is based on, Woman of Tomorrow. I'm really hopeful for what they might do, because that Supergirl comic is fantastic.
Cool. But speaking of villains, though, I think I know where Nico's going to go here. You go right ahead.
Steve, I'm going to cut the shit. Me and Ben, we're being held hostage by a powerful and capricious bibliomancer. And this story sorcerer, he draws his energy from people's love of books, and the only way to satisfy his demands, wink wink, is to give him book recommendations from talented writers such as yourself. So to save us from a bit of torture, could you answer one question?
Okay.
What novel is closest to your heart right now?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Closest to my heart right now, it's the closest to my heart for a really, really long time. It's Night Watch by Terry Pratchett.
Cool.
That's my favourite Terry Pratchett book ever, and I think it's probably top 5 fantasy novel ever written.
That makes 3 of us.
Yeah, that does make 3 of us. What about it, do you reckon, makes it stand out for you to that degree? Because, we could talk about it till the cows come in, but I'm interested in what you think.
Vimes is my favourite fictional character. He's He is everything I want from a character, and he has a cast of characters around him who only make him better. And that is the book where you realise for all of Vimes's kind of foibles and his constant complaining about the city, and his that's the book where you realise that Vimes puts his money where his mouth is every single day. I mean, you see it beforehand in the books, but when he goes back to being a kid, when he goes back in time, and he sees it all break down, and you see how he becomes the man he becomes. It's just wonderful. It's just a magnificent book. It's probably Terry's best work. And it's the book that has it has a very, very special place in my heart. So I'm gonna go with Night Watch.
Answer accepted. Like we as I say, we absolutely love that book, and we love the series, and we love the work that man produced. And I would agree as well. Yeah.
No, sorry, go on. I don't want to interrupt.
I was going to say, I would agree that I think it is potentially the best constructed one. Of maybe there are like moments in some of the other books that are like bigger or funnier or whatever, but it's like that is such a tight book that you can not read any other Discworld, and that's a good book. Yeah.
There are parts in other books, especially other guards books, like Jingo is really funny.
Yeah.
Especially the whole stuff with Nobbs and Colin being under the water. That's hysterical.
Yeah.
And Guards is clearly him finding his kind of feet of the Guards books, and Men at Arms is a great kind of way of looking at kind of modern problems where it comes to people who want power and they're willing to do anything to take it. And there are great moments in all of the books. But like you said, Night Watch is so tightly written, and so there's no fat on that book at all.
No,
everything that happens is important to that book. There are still funny bits in it, but yeah, no, it's just a great book.
It's also like it is actually quite hard to write a time travel story that makes sense as well. And
yes,
that one does seem to it tracks for me. Even the bits where it turns out that he's got like lost time, do make sense to me, and I like it a lot. I've got a follow-up question, which is that you mentioned earlier that your first Pratchett book was actually Men at Arms.
Yes.
How excited were you when you realised that there was another one before that and lots more after it?
Oh no, that was a very good day. That was because the school library had probably all of them up to 1994, whenever it was. So that would have been probably a dozen books at the time. So finding guards, and then going over and reading The Witches, and then going over and reading Rincewind and Pyramids and all those books. Yeah, there was a lot of Terry Pratchett in the in that period of time. And it was all great. And also the thing about Terry that I learned from reading Terry Pratchett is that whenever you become an author and people say, well, these are the rules. Well, Terry Pratchett's books didn't follow any of the rules that people say you're supposed to. There were no chapters. He went off on tangents at regular intervals. There were footnotes about things that he thought were funny. It was just chaos compared to the rules that you're supposed to. And that was kind of a little bit like another author who did it was can't remember his name now, but he wrote No Country for Old Men.
I've only seen the film of that. I've heard the book's good though.
There's no punctuation in the books. Oh, there's no quote. There's no speech marks in the books.
It's Cormac McCarthy. That's why.
Yeah, there's no speech marks. You just figure it out yourself. And again, that just goes against all of the rules of writing. And I think it's really important that there are authors who kind of say, those rules are cool and all, but I'm going to do this. And everyone kind of goes, that's amazing. And I think that's quite... rules are not there necessarily to be adhered to strictly.
There was I read this book ages ago. I think it's Filth by Irvin Welsh, but it might have been a different Irvin Welsh book. But it's the one where he has the tapeworm, and it starts to take over the page. And initially, you can't. It doesn't make any sense. But in the shape of a tapeworm, through the actual text of the book, it starts to have its own story that's inside the shape of it. It's laid over the top, so you're missing bits of the actual prose for this, and it's such a good example of that exact thing where it's just like you can just break these rules and people still get it. And it'll often actually improve the experience.
People, clever people who want to write books and want to do it their own way should. I mean, it doesn't always work. Sometimes it's just a complete mess. But when it does work, you get classics. And I think that's a good thing.
So I'm going to move us on. And this can be a bit of a touchy question for some people, so feel free to bounce it right back at me. But what role does organized religion have in storytelling for you?
Ooh, as someone who's not a huge fan of organized religion, I was christened when I was a kid, and went to church and stuff like that, and I was a member of I was in the Cubs and then the Scouts, and there's a lot of religion tied to that too. I am all here for faith and less here for organized religion. And I think it's actually, I think if you're going to write a book about a world and it doesn't have religion, you should probably reconsider. Because if there was no Christianity, no whatever, we would have different ones. We had different ones for years and years and years. We worshipped the sun for a while, for a really long while, and then we worshipped, the deities who lived on Mount Olympus or wherever, which other deities you want to consider outside of the current main pantheon of religions. So I think they're really important. They're important in terms of if you're going to do world building, at some point you probably want to think about religion. So yeah, I do genuinely think that religion has a part to play in, even if it's just because you want a good villain, because religion always makes a good villain.
When you were, you've written multiple books now about vampires. Did you have to put some consideration into whether or not those anti-vampire sort of Catholic holdovers were going to make it in, and how that would look in your world?
I have mentioned religion in there. In the first book, there's a group of people called the Magistrate, who are an American fundamentalist religious order who believe that vampires are evil and humans should kill them all, basically. I didn't delve too much into the fundamentalist part of that particular order because it just made me sad. So I was like, I don't want to draw too many real life parallels because honestly, it's going to make my brain hurt, and then I'm going to be angry at the world. I do mention religion. I've mentioned when I wrote the Harlequin stuff, I always said all mythology was real, which is what I kept to. And the exceptions of that were anything that people currently believe in. Because I didn't want to use someone's belief for my entertainment. So I didn't really do Catholicism and Judaism and Hindu and all that kind of stuff. Because people believe in that stuff, and I don't want to, I wanted to be respectful of people's beliefs. In the same way that I didn't use Native American kind of beliefs, because they believe in it. I actually did use Native Americans for the second Harlequin book, but a friend of mine who I'm very happy about, her next door neighbor was Native American, and it was an elderly lady, and she agreed to talk to me about what would be appropriate and what would not be appropriate. So that was very nice. So yeah, I have put religion, and my epic fantasy has a big religious component to it because it's all about necromancy. And this particular religious in this thing basically sees necromancy as godlike. You are that is a piece of God that you have and that you are able to, and they try and control it.
I like that power over life and death. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and but their idea is that if you can do too much necromancy, then you've taken too much from God, and that's heresy. So you can only have an appropriate allotted amount of power, and anything above it is heresy. So yeah, that was always that's been quite fun and entertaining to do. And even in stuff if you go back to other fandoms like Warhammer and stuff like that, every single religious person in Warhammer is a psychopath, a stone cold raving psychopath. They are most of the time villains as well. Not all the time. Sometimes they're the good guys. But yeah, the whole point of 40k is basically one of the Space Marine chapters, despite the fact that this guy who kept saying, I'm not a god, you need to stop telling everybody I'm a god, it's really messing people up, stop it, I'm not a god. And then going, no problem. And then continuing to tell everybody that he was a god, and then unlocking actual gods who basically ate people. And tore the universe apart. And so yeah, I think religion's always, I know it's a touchy subject, which is why I try to stay away from writing
I think that's
about.
a really sensitive approach and a really good answer. Yeah, I really liked it. I tell you what, though, I just want to move us on to this next question because I want to make sure we have time for it because I'm absolutely fascinated. Because you've written, was it 31 books currently?
Yes, 31. Yeah. My 31st book comes out in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Oh well, congratulations for a start. But
thank you very much.
Do you have a particular editing process that has been sort of refined 31 times, or is it different every time?
I have a couple of different editors. I have an editor for the books that are published traditionally, and I have a different editor that I use for self-published work. And the self-published work that I've used is usually novellas, short stories, and stuff. And by the time I've written that, because it's quite tight and they're quite short in page length and number length, word length, I write them pretty tightly, and there's not a lot that needs doing to the story. It's just a matter of you've used too many commas or not enough commas, and this bit doesn't make sense, and that's all good. But when you're writing a 125,000 word book, that kind of goes out the window, because Julie will email me back with huge swathes of this bit doesn't work, this bit doesn't work, what is this? So my method of editing is I write the book and I send it to Julie or whoever else is editing it. Julie Crisp, she edits my work, my current books, the vampire
Julie
books.
Crisp, yeah, lovely.
Who is lovely and a wonderful editor, and she has a way of editing that I need. I've had editors in the past who are quite like, well, if you like, we can do this, or we can do this, or we can do this. And Julie's like, this doesn't work. Do it different. And I need that. I need to be told, Steve, what's this? What is this? This doesn't work. This doesn't make any sense. You've done this and you've done this over here. Well, just do it again. And I think that's important to have an editor who, from my personal point of view, doesn't hold back. So that's my editing process. My editing process, if I send it to her, she then takes a month to just tear it to pieces and sends it back to me. And then I look through all of hers and we have a good chat. And I make the changes I think need to be made. And I might say to her, look, I know you're not a fan of this, but this bit's important for this bit, so I'm going to keep it. Because the one thing you should never do as an author is just agree to change everything. That's not how editing works. Yeah. And then I send it back, and then she sends it back, and then I send it back, and then we do, and then someone else does copy editing, proof editing, line editing. And then by that point, I can see the book in my head every time I close my eyes, because I've read it probably 30 times by that point.
So it's actually quite a first draft that gets sent to Julie, then, is it? Is it? It's
yes, yeah. It's close to first-ish draft. I edit as I write. So the way in which I write is that I always stop in the middle of a chapter, and then so I will usually write so today I wrote 2,000 words, and yesterday I wrote 4,500 words. So I'll always make sure that I end my writing session in the middle of a chapter, so that the next day I can come in, I can read what I wrote before, and by the time I've done reading what I've written, I've made little changes here and there, and I'm ready to go. My head's already in the game, I'm already where I need to be, and I'm just going. So by the time I've finished the book, in theory, I've probably edited it twice as I've went along. And there's still stuff that and still stuff that I think is really clever. And Julie will say, I know you think you're being really, really clever here. And if I was in your brain, I might think the same. But I have to read this and I don't make any sense of it because you've not told me any of the information that I need, but you already know. So, there's usually quite a bit of, Steve, if you're going to put this in, you need to at least explain what it is to people because I know you know it, but I don't know it. Which is why I'll send her a book and it will be 115,000 words long, and then by the time I'm done editing, it's 130,000 words. So,
everybody needs Julie, I think.
Yes, yeah. I just think the pub authors, a lot of authors, any author I've ever heard of who says I don't want anyone to edit my work is just insane because. I would not want to have no one edit my work. That would be. I can tell you always can tell when someone says I don't want anyone to edit my work because their word length goes up increasingly with every book.
Yeah,
and they'll start off with 100,000 words, and then on book 1, and by book 6, it's 390,000, and it's like, okay, they've said no one's going to edit my work.
Yeah,
and it reads like it too.
Remain nameless.
That person with their many film and TV franchises under their belt will remain nameless.
There's a few of them. There are a few of them. I know Anne Rice is quite famously said that she didn't want people to edit her work, but there's a few others, and you can often tell when they have said, "I'm not being edited," and I just find that mad personally.
So we did get a little bit of a hint that several thousand words have poured out of you in the last few days. How much can you get away with telling us about the current project?
The current project is called The Song of the Vampire. And it is about a vampire who is a singer. And she has been around for about 100 years, and Miles and her were first acquainted in World War II when she was trying to escape from France and he was there helping her. And she is now preparing to do a big performance at the Royal Albert Hall, and she's getting death threats. And one of these death threats becomes a bit more tangible than just a death threat, and somebody else dies. And Miles sort of drags himself into this, and finds out that there's a lot more going on than just death threats to his friend. And then lots of other people start getting killed as well. So this is the first 3 books are all sort of standalone. There are little bits from each, so there's little bits that travel through, but they're mostly standalone. These next 3 are a trilogy. So this is the first book of the new trilogy, and then book 5 is continuing on from this, and then book 6 is the finale of this trilogy, which will leave hopefully Miles and everybody in a very different place to when it started. So that's the plan. I don't know if there's going to be more after that. There might be, there might not. If there's not, then I've left it in a really happy place.
No,
and I'll be happy where this leads, and I'll be satisfied with that. Not happy in a everyone's happy kind of place, but in a I'm personally going to be happy with leaving it there. But if my publisher says, "Can you also write more?" then I can. So yeah, that's it. Song of the Vampire is the word. Is
Song of
the
Vampire.
her voice heals people.
That's
So
the Noble House.
her it's called House Meteor. She's a part of a house called House Meteor, and they're originally called House Meteor because people thought was meteors were miracles, and so they just kind of took the word meteor, and their whole shtick is that they can heal people. Well, Elisa, who's the main character, who's the female singer, her ability is through her singing voice. So she heals people, makes people feel happy and content when she sings. So she does sort of the big band kind of singing. She's not really a pop star or anything. So her setup is more Celine Dion-esque than Carpenter or any of the kind of modern young singers. So yeah, so I was kind of it's been a lot of fun to write. I've nearly finished it. I have to hand it in by the end of the month, and it's nearly done. So,
oh man, that makes it even nicer that you've given us some of your time this evening. That's
no,
really
it's fun. It's
yeah.
been a lot of fun to write. I'm enjoying getting to it, and then I'm going to start book 5 and get that done, and then I start my first epic fantasy book, which is called The City of Ghosts, and I've been looking forward to writing that for about 8 years. So I'm really getting into that one, and that one is also part of a trilogy. So yeah, there's lots of work, which is nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly prolific, and it's really good stuff as well. Just before we start to wrap up, because I think we probably do need to call time relatively soon. It's just I had this question from earlier that I just really wanted to ask. Just a little question. It's just
Okay.
You mentioned those books that your tutor picked out. That you picked out when your tutor sent you to the library.
Yeah.
And one of them was a Gemmell book, and obviously
Yes.
you were nominated for a Gemmell Award, and what a cool full circle that is.
Yeah.
To start with Gemmell, and then it basically, because the point of the Gemmell Awards is that if you're nominated or you're given one, then that means that you've written something that's very much has the essence of Gemmell's writing, right?
It was the Gemmell Awards were voted for by people. They weren't voted for by people who so like some awards you have to be a member of that award or that kind of thing to be able to vote, and the Gemmell Awards was just open to the public to vote for. So it was whoever gets the most vote from the public, and you got an axe. Snagar, I think is the name of the axe in the Gemmell books. Drust's axe, Drust's axe, and I got to go. I went to the award ceremony and I lost to Robin Hobb. And if you're going to lose to someone, you might as well lose to Robin Hobb.
Quite
I mean, honestly,
pursuit losing to Robin Hobb, isn't it?
It's just I lost to Robin Hobb. There is no shame in losing to Robin Hobb. So it was very nice though.
Authors, I think, of any genre.
Yeah.
I think I legitimately think she's completely cross genre.
Yes,
incredible talent.
She's one of the greatest authors. Full stop. I mean, her work is just intricate and beautiful, and I can't remember how many times I shouted at the main character from Assassin for being a complete dumbass at every available opportunity.
Why are you like this?
Yeah. What is wrong with you? Like you wanted to just say, like, I understand you've had a hard life, man, but what is wrong with you?
It's not even that bad. Like, it's not even that bad.
Yeah. He just every opportunity to make a decision, he makes the completely wrong one in every single time. And the books are great, and I absolutely love them. But that main character, I would have throttled him. He drove me absolutely bonkers, and I know that was kind of the design.
Yeah,
but oh god, that guy.
So, where should people go to keep up with your news and, any upcoming projects, and also to buy your books as well? Like, have you got a preferred place that they can get them?
My books are available at whatever Amazon you wish to have to get them at. They're also available on Audible, and there's a couple on Spotify. There's I can't remember what they are. The Last Raven and No Gods, Only Monsters are both on Spotify. As for paperbacks, again, Amazon, but you can also get them from Waterstones or whichever bookshop you would like them to be ordered from, or you can go to the library and just say, "Can I please have this book?" And then they will get it for you. So yeah, no. And as for where you can find more about me, I'm on Facebook and Threads and Instagram, and I have a Patreon, and I have Steve McHugh, Steve J McHugh at wordpress.com, and just Steve McHugh. There's not that many of us.
Yeah.
So if you just type Google Steve McHugh, there's me and there's a chef.
I found that earlier.
It's really weird. I felt bad for the guy because all of his books were put onto my Goodreads author page, and I had to email the Goodreads and was like, "I've never written a book about fish in my entire life," and he might want credit for that book. So it's just the two of us. Oh, and my dad, but my dad's probably not on Google for anything. So yeah.
To be fair, other Steve's fight scenes are so good that we nearly got him instead. Cod put up a hell of a fight.
Yeah, it's just the Halibut trilogy was quite something.
It's harrowing. Fantastic.
Yes, it
well,
was.
Steve, seriously, it's been an absolute delight talking to you. I really enjoyed listening to that chapter 2 from that book earlier, and I just the journey you've taken us on with your influences and how you started, how it's going, and what you're intending to do in the future. It's all been really cool. So just thanks again for coming on. It's we've really appreciated your time and enjoyed your company.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a lovely time and a lot of fun. And it just goes to prove that, like I said earlier, going to cons, you can get opportunities to do cool things and meet cool people.
Thanks, man.
And it's been great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, full of freaks and lunatics, them cons,
They're also full of freaks and lunatics. That is also true.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La, How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?